So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy. Today's the Hindu news analysis. Today we have a few important articles from both the Hindu and Indian Express newspaper, and we have selected all important news articles, and one by one we try to discuss them in this session. And before actually discussing all those important articles, let's try to solve yesterday given practice question. So this question is very important because there were also questions on this previously asked in various examinations. The question was the Central Pollution Control Board. It is a statutory organization and it was constituted under which of the following legislations, and this is the question. Options are Environment Protection Act 1986, Wildlife Protection Act 1972, Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1974, and Biodiversity Act 2002. So correct answer for this question is option C, Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1974, and this particular legislation has provided for the establishment of the Central Pollution Control Board. You just remember this is very important. So this has been taken from the website of the Central Pollution Control Board. So you can see here the Central Pollution Control Board is a statutory body, a statutory organization as it is mentioned here, and it was constituted in September 1974 under the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act of 1974. So therefore the correct answer for the question is option C. And today I have a geography based question, and this is also one of the most important questions, right? So this is with respect to mapping. The question is, the Red Sea is a strip of water and an inlet of the Indian Ocean, and it has been occupying an area that has been separating the continent of Africa from the continent of Asia, right? So these countries that you are seeing here are bordering with the Red Sea. Now how many of these countries have been bordering with the Red Sea, and that is the question. So the countries that are given here are Egypt, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Yemen and Saudi Arabia. You just have to identify, you just look at the map and identify the countries which have been sharing their borders with the Red Sea, and then try to answer this question in the comment section, right? So today we'll start this discussion with one very important article. So that is, a new species of dogfish shark has been found in Kerala, right? So in UPSC examinations or any other state PSC examinations, there are very often questions about new species that are discovered in recent past. So the context of this particular new species of dogfish shark that is found in Kerala, it says that recently the Geological Survey of India has discovered a new species of deep water living dogfish shark, right? So this is also known as Squalus hema. So this is known as Squalus lima, and this is a deep water living dogfish shark species, right? So this has been found from the Shakti Kulangara fishing harbor in Kerala, right? So it was found in the Shakti Kulangara deep fishing harbor in Kerala, and in fact it is a deep water dogfish shark species that was recently discovered. Now we'll try to understand some details about this dogfish shark species. That in this image you are seeing this dogfish shark fish, right? So these dogfish sharks are known for having a smooth spine. Now if you look at the spine of this particular dogfish shark species, it is having a very smooth spine on their dorsal fins, right? So you can see the dorsal fins of this dogfish shark species, and it is having a very smooth spine on their dorsal fins, and in fact it can be found in many marine settings around the world. The dogfish shark species is found in the many marine settings across the world. And in fact, so why it is very important to discover such a species in India? Because it is important in protecting the environment, right? So when we discover such species, we can protect the environment, we can protect the new species and the existing biodiversity and the environment in which these species are living, right? So when we talk about especially these dogfish shark species, they are actually caught or poached for their meat, fins and liver oil, and in fact they are also facing the threat of extinction because very often these dogfish shark species are hunted for their meat, fins and liver oil. And in fact cosmetics and drug companies across the world are very much interested in the liver oil of this dogfish shark species because of a very high squalene content, and that can be used in manufacturing beauty products and even drug manufacturing. This is a very important product for all these things. And apart from that, we'll try to understand few important details about the Geological Survey of India also. This Geological Survey of India was established, or it was founded in 1916 July 1st, right? So this was the date Geological Survey of India first founded, and what is the objective and why it was founded. So we will try to understand that. So the Geological Survey of India is dedicated to the systematic survey, exploration, research of India's fauna, right? So it is very important that when we talk about the environmental conservation, so environment includes both living things and non-living things. Now when we talk about the living things, fauna and flora are two major important living things. So therefore Geological Survey of India specially deals with the India's rich and diverse fauna, and initially it was established for the purpose of promoting the geological studies, but over a period of time its mandate has been further expanded to cover survey, exploration and research of India's diverse fauna. Now when we talk about the headquarters of the Geological Survey of India, its headquarters is located in Kerala, right? So after that we will try to understand briefly the operations and collections of the Geological Survey of India. And as of now the Geological Survey of India has 16 regional stations. Its headquarters is located in Kolkata, but it has a 16 regional stations across India. And in fact the Geological Survey of India also houses around 5 million specimens of different fauna. So remember, as I have already told you, that the Geological Survey of India primarily tasked with doing systematic research, survey and exploration of India's fauna, and therefore it houses around 5 million specimens of fauna. And in fact the organization identifies and archives and exhibits various animal specimens, contributing significantly to the understanding and preservation of India's rich biodiversity. And in fact the Geological Survey of India plays a very important role in protection and conservation of India's rich biodiversity. Now it is very important that due to climate change and several other factors, the biodiversity has been facing numerous challenges, and in this context the Geological Survey of India, its exploration, assessment and research plays a very important role in the conservation of the biodiversity, right? So what are the major tasks that are undertaken by the Geological Survey of India with respect to conservation and assessment of the biodiversity? It conducts environmental impact assessments regularly for various developmental projects. You may have come across the environmental impact assessment. An environmental assessment is a detailed study which has been used for understanding the impact of any project or any developmental project, infrastructure project on the environment and flora and fauna. So this is essentially used to understand the environmental impacts of any developmental project. Accordingly, we can understand the overall impact of such projects on sensitive environment, and accordingly making changes so that the environmental footprint of such large scale infrastructure development projects would be further minimized, and therefore the Geological Survey of India, primarily tasked with conducting the environmental impact assessment of various developmental projects, so that essentially ensures protection of the biodiversity, conservation of the biodiversity. And apart from that, the Geological Survey of India very often maintains and regularly updates red data book also. For example, when we talk about the International Union for conservation of nature, it also releases the red book, right? So it also releases red book of threatened species. So don't confuse with the red data book of the Geological Survey of India and International Union for Conservation of Nature's red book, right? So it consists of the list of threatened species which are categorized into different groups based on their threat perception. But this Geological Survey of India actually releases this red data book also, and this red data book primarily tasked with documenting the conservation status of different species. And in fact, the red data book of the Geological Survey of India also plays a very important role, or it plays a very crucial role in species preservation and conservation efforts in India. Remember that India is one of the richest biodiversity hotspots, and in order to protect and conserve the existing biodiversity and the resources that can be derived from the biodiversity, it is very important that the Geological Survey of India should conduct a foolproof environmental impact assessment, and at the same time, through the red data book, we can assess the threat perceptions of different species, which forms a very important part of the India's biodiversity. And apart from that, the economic and environmental impact should also be understood, right? So the finding shows how important it is to find the balance between using the environment for business purposes and protecting it for the future generations. Especially we are talking about the dog, fish, shark species, right? So this particular finding actually reveals, or it stresses on the balance between using the biodiversity for the commercial purposes and protecting the environment for the future generations. The balance is very, very important. And apart from that, there should be a better control of sustainable fisheries and marine biodiversity, so that can be achieved by learning about new species. So learning about new species is also very important, so that we can understand the link between the biodiversity and environmental conservation, environmental protection efforts, whether those efforts are actually giving sustained results over a period of time. So therefore, finding out new species is very, very important. And apart from that, this is especially true with respect to the economically important areas like India's exclusive economic zone. And if you look at India's coastal areas, up to 12 nautical miles, we have territorial waters. From 12 nautical miles to 200 nautical miles, so we have the contiguous zone, right? Territorial waters, contiguous zone. And beyond the 200 nautical miles, we have exclusive economic zone, right? So I think 200 nautical miles, it would be exclusive economic zone, and beyond exclusive economic zone, it would be international waters, right? So exclusive economic zone up to 200 nautical miles, sorry about that, right? So this new finding is especially true with respect to economically important areas in the exclusive economic zone. And in these areas also, we need to protect the biodiversity, and conservation of the biodiversity is also utmost importance for India in the exclusive economic zone. So next important article is with respect to Samvidhan Hatya Divas. And recently, Union government has declared that June 25 would be the Samvidhan Hatya Divas. Just remember this, June 25, a date. So June 25 would be the Samvidhan Hatya Divas that the Union government has recently announced. Now, also remember that we also have the Constitution Day, right? So when is the Constitution Day? Constitution Day is on November 26th. Every year is celebrated as the Constitution Day, because On this day, the constitution was adopted by the Constituent Assembly, and because of that reason, November 26th is celebrated as the Constitution Day. But recently, the central government declared June 25 as the Samvidhan Hatya Divas. So why? Because in June 25, 1975, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi declared the emergency in India, and in order to commemorate such a dark period of India's democracy, Union government declared Samvidhan Hatya Divas. Now we will understand the context of this particular article. So the context is that Union government recently decided to observe June 25th as the emergency, right? So the day emergency was imposed in 1975, and June 25 the central government decided to celebrate this June 25 as the Samvidhan Hatya Divas, because the emergency was imposed on June 25th 1975, right? And when we talk about the significance of this particular date in India's history, why it is called as the dark age of India's history, India's democracy specifically, is because on June 25th 1975, the then Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi, in a display of a dictatorial mindset or an authoritarian nature of the government, what the former Prime Minister or then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi did was she imposed emergency all across the nation, right? So when she imposed the emergency all over the nation, lakhs of people were thrown behind the bars, and in fact the civil liberties of the people were violated on a large scale, and in fact the voice of the media was also silenced. So we have the fundamental rights, especially Article 19. Now when we talk about these fundamental rights, so it is very important that freedom of speech and expression is a very important part of media, right? So media's freedom or press freedom actually guaranteed by the Article 19 of the Indian Constitution. And during emergency, what happened was a severe form of restrictions were also imposed on the press, and that led to the silencing of the press when emergency was imposed by Indira Gandhi. And in fact there was also a gross abuse of the power by the government of the day. The bureaucrats were also abused the power during the emergency, and in fact during emergency people of India were subjected to excesses and atrocities by the bureaucracy and the government. So therefore, because of that reason, the Union government recently decided to celebrate or observe 25th June every year as the Samvidhan Hatya Divas, right? So this was the reason. So because of that reason, Union government decided to celebrate Samvidhan Hatya Divas on June 25th every year. And in fact this will commemorate the massive contributions of different people who actually endured a lot of suffering, a lot of struggle during the emergency time. So they also faced an inhuman pain during the period of emergency 1975. So therefore, the Samvidhan Hatya Divas will commemorate the massive contribution of all those people. And to observe this 25th June as the Samvidhan Hatya Divas, it will serve as a reminder for the future generations that what happened in 1975. So why the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi imposed national emergency. So therefore, how the constitution was actually trampled and why it was a darker age of India's democracy. So in order to further create a lot of awareness among the future generations about this emergency, 25th June will be celebrated as the Samvidhan Hatya Divas. And in fact it will also be commemorated to pay homage to each and every person who suffered and who endured a lot of pain due to the excesses of the emergency. And in fact, the union government, the NDA-led union government, also said that the Congress at that point of time unleashed a dark phase in the Indian history. right? Time and again I am telling you that the emergency was declared on 25th June 1975, and in fact it was the biggest and darkest chapter in, or the direct attack on the Indian constitution, and in fact we can also call this as an attack on the Indian democracy, or an attack on the constitution, and dark age for India's democracy. In fact, the entire country felt the negative consequences of this particular national emergency, because press freedom was violated and most of the people were put behind bars, and civil liberties of the people were taken away by the government, and because of that reason most of the people felt outraged by this national emergency. However, the country ultimately emerged victorious, and this emergency did not last too long, and people have recognized that this emergency was unconstitutional, and this was also against the democratic traditions of the country. So that is what the people have understood after the emergency was imposed, the national emergency was imposed. So to make sure that people always remember about this dark age of India's democracy, or an attack on the Indian constitution, the Samvidhan Hatya Divas will be celebrated every year on June 25th. Now when we talk about the national emergency, before also we have discussed Article 352 of the Indian constitution deals with the national emergency, and apart from that, so which article deals with the president's rule, you just mention in the comment section. Next important article, the public distribution system and its impact on the household expenditure. How public distribution system will actually have an impact on the household expenditure, this has to be understood properly. And what is this public distribution system? So public distribution system is also known as a fair price shop at a block level or at a district level. It distributes food grains to poor people at subsidized prices under the National Food Security Act of the Government of India. And in fact, so when we talk about the food grains which are distributed on subsidized prices through the public distribution system or fair price shops, so we all knew that government announces MSP for various crops, and under MSP government procures crops. On behalf of the government, Food Corporation of India procures food grains, and this Food of Corporation of India, after procuring the food grains, it maintains the buffer stocks, and after it maintains the buffer stocks, through the central issue price, it supplies and distributes food grains to different states, and from states these food grains would be distributed to different fair price shops, and then from fair price shops it will be provided to all the households who are poor, who are below poverty line individuals, at a very subsidized price, right? So that price is known as consumer issue price, and central issue price, at which the central government issues food grains to the different states or distributes food grains to the different states, right? So this is how the public distribution system actually work, and we will understand how the public distribution system will impact the household expenditure. Understand the context. So recently the household consumption expenditure survey data was released. So this household consumption expenditure survey of 22-23 has actually sparked a renewed interest on analyzing the overall impact of the public distribution system on the household expenditure, how this public distribution system will overall impact the household expenditure in rural and urban areas. And in fact, the public distribution system and household expenditure plays a very important role in deciding the poverty matrix in India. For example, imagine that the household expenditure survey, according to the household expenditure survey, if household expenditure is substantially low, then we can say that people are in extreme poverty. Because of that reason, they are not able to spend enough expenditure on the food grains. So there are different dynamics which are involved, and we will understand this in a very brief manner. Now, what are the key findings of this household consumer expenditure survey 22-23? Now, according to this particular survey, up to 75% of the population in rural areas and 50% of the population in urban areas are eligible to receive the subsidized food grains under the National Food Security Act 2013. National Food Security Act 2013 ensures the subsidized food grains to every below poverty line household, right? So according to this data, 75% of the total beneficiaries from the rural areas and 50% of the total beneficiaries are from the urban areas. And in fact, when we talk about the National Sample Survey Office, so it has also comes up with some values for free food items also, with 94 to 95% of this imputed value is attributed to food items in the public distribution system, right? So majority of the food grains which are majority of the supplies which are distributed to the below poverty line individuals, 94 to 95% are food items from the public distribution system. So how it will impact the consumption, right? So average imputed value of for food is around 82 in rural areas and 59 in urban areas, and this has been indicating a significant impact on the household consumption over a period of time. So this has revealed that the public distribution system and subsidized food grains in fact impact the household consumption and household consumption patterns in both urban and rural areas. Now we will briefly understand what is this public distribution system. So it protects beneficiary from the inflation and even the price volatility also. For example, imagine due to bad harvest, rice prices are substantially increased, and that indicates inflation. So in case of inflation, poor and underprivileged sections cannot afford higher priced rice, so therefore the public distribution system will provide them subsidized food grains at lower prices, and thereby it helps them meet their malnutrition requirements, and it will also eradicate hunger among the poor and underprivileged sections of the society. And apart from that, it also ensures entitlement is used only food. Okay, so the entitlements under public distribution system is only food, and apart from that, a well developed public distribution system actually ensures or provides availability of food even in the most remotest areas of our country. Now even most remotest areas of our country are also covered under the public distribution system, so therefore you can imagine the impact of the people who are living in the remote corners of our country. And in fact, direct benefit transfer scheme, in order to weed out corruption, in order to remove corruption in the public distribution system, so this direct benefit transfer is also on the cards to implement across the public distribution system. So this is essentially means cash in hands of poor will increase their choices and makes them more empowered. Now when we talk about the direct benefit transfer system, now earlier through public distribution system, food grains are distributed to the eligible poor households, but instead of distributing food grains to the poor households under the direct benefit transfer scheme, firstly it emphasizes on financial inclusion of all individuals, every poor individual, and then so whatever that the government has been providing through the public distribution system, so the same quantity or the same value would be transferred into the beneficiaries bank accounts, so that the beneficiaries can withdraw the money and they can spend on the food items that they want. So that's why it said that it enhances or increases their food choices, and it also makes them more empowered, right? So in fact it provides money, and it may also relieve poor from the financial constraints, though there will be no financial constraints if direct benefit transfer is ensured and food is also provided to the poor people. And administrative cost of direct benefit transfer is much lesser than that of the public distribution system also, right? So because the Food Corporation of India need to maintain buffer stocks, from the buffer stocks food has to be distributed, transportation costs, and from the transportation cost, maintenance or honorary pay of the people who have been running this fair price shops. So therefore the administrative cost of the direct benefit transfer is substantially lower than the public distribution system, and in fact it also enhances the choices of the people, right? So we will briefly understand about this public distribution system and some issues within this public distribution system. As I have already told you that through public distribution system, food grains are provided to the eligible beneficiaries at subsidized prices. However, it has been facing number of issues. The first issue is poor quality of food grains. Commodities which are supplied under the food public distribution system are very often poor in nature, and they also having a lack of minerals and lack of quality, and that further leads to the problem of malnutrition among the beneficiaries. And apart from that, the crippling storage capability of the buffer stocks and poor management and maintenance of buffer stocks is also another problem. Very often these buffer stocks are managed by the Food Corporation of India, and therefore the poor storage facilities is also another major challenge with respect to the public distribution system and maintenance of buffer stocks. Generally, identification of beneficiaries as a responsibility is given to the state governments, but here the problem is that state governments are very often failed to identify the genuine beneficiaries, and that very often lead to the ghost beneficiaries and even corruption within the public distribution system. So therefore the expenditure on the public distribution system or the subsidy amount has been significantly increasing because of the ghost beneficiaries. So there should be efforts to remove these ghost beneficiaries, and original beneficiaries, genuine beneficiaries must be identified, and the benefits of subsidized food grains must be extended to the genuine beneficiaries. And in fact, the food subsidy bill has also been rising substantially because the government has been issuing MSP and procuring food grains from the farmers through the MSP, and in fact the government has been providing food grains to the poor people at a subsidized prices, at a lower prices. So therefore the food subsidy bill or the expenditure has been substantially increasing over a period of time, and in fact according to 2019-20 estimates it was around 1.84 lakh crores, right? So the food subsidy bill alone, and apart from that there is also a leakage of the food grains as well. So because of the distribution of the food grains from the FCI go downs to the states and then fair price shops, very often it leads to the leakage of food grains, and even corruption is also another major challenge within the public distribution system. Now we will understand importance of the public distribution system, why it is important. So it is very important because it plays a very important role in ensuring food and nutritional security for India's population, and it would also eradicate malnutrition, hunger, and even poverty also, right? So schemes like Manrega and PDS are a very important schemes to alleviate poverty in rural areas, because these are the programs which protect people from the inflation and volatility of the prices. So therefore the public distribution system essentially ensures food and nutritional security by making food more affordable, accessible, and available to the poorest of the poor sections of the Indian society. And in fact, this public distribution system also helps in maintaining buffer stock of food grains. As I have already told you that the FCI procures food grains from the farmers through MSP, and then the Food Corporation of India maintains a buffer stock of food grains. So therefore it would ensure flow of food grains remains stable or remains active even during disasters, famines, or any other crisis that has been taking place. Since we have a huge buffer stocks to distribute food grains for the poor during the crisis times, or continuous supply of food grains can be ensured because of we having a lot of buffer stock of food grains. And it would also help in redistribution of these food grains by supplying food from surplus regions of the country and to deficit regions. For example, imagine that Haryana is a one state, or Punjab is another state where a huge amount of rice or wheat cultivated. So government procures rice and wheat from these regions, and it would be distributed to states like Rajasthan, Gujarat, Chhattisgarh, those states also. So therefore a redistribution of grains, especially food grains, through the public distribution system also ensures that this hunger, poverty, malnutrition can be actually dealt with. And in fact, it also provides minimum support prices for the farmers from the government side, because through minimum support prices government procures food grains from the farmers. So therefore it would act as an incentive on the part of the farmers, and it would also substantially increase the food grain production in India over a period of time, and it would also stabilize the food prices to deal with the shortages of food grains in the market. So these are the benefits or advantages of the public distribution system. So however, recent times government had undertaken a number of initiatives to further revive this public distribution system. Now what are those measures? Aadhaar linked and digitized ration card scheme was introduced, and this Aadhaar linked and digitized ration card scheme essentially ensures that there will be no corruption and no ghost beneficiaries within the public distribution system, and it would also save hundreds of crores of rupees of expenditure on the public distribution system from the government side. And in fact, it allows the online entry and verification of the eligible beneficiaries, thereby weeding out the ghost beneficiaries, and also it helps in identification of genuine beneficiaries. And computerized fair price shops is another option that was recently introduced into the public distribution system. So this computerized fair price shops actually further enhances digitization of the public distribution system, and it helps in identification of genuine beneficiaries, and again it weed out the ghost beneficiaries or the fake beneficiaries who are getting benefited even though they are not poor, right? So therefore it would regularly tracks the quantity of food grains distributed to the eligible beneficiaries every month. So therefore we get to know about the trends, and we can also eliminate the loopholes within the public distribution system. The direct benefit transfer as a method was also introduced by the government. So again, the government has actually been thinking about the direct benefit transfer, so it is not yet implemented properly, right? So when we talk about the direct benefit transfer scheme, through fair price shops, food grains will not be distributed through the fair price shops. Instead, each beneficiary would be identified, and the total amount of subsidized money would be sent to the bank accounts. For example, imagine that government has been providing 4 kilograms of rice to each house, each individual per month. In market, the market value of 1 kg of rice would be around 30 rupees, right? So 1 kg of rice would be 30 rupees, and therefore what the government do? Government will actually transfer 120 rupees per month to the account of each individual, and therefore food grains will not be distributed, but the total money will be sent to the bank accounts of the individuals through the direct benefit transfer. And direct benefit transfer actually helps in identifying genuine beneficiaries, weeding out ghost beneficiaries, and it will also substantially reduces the administrative costs as well. And in fact, in recent times, GPS technology was also used to regularly track the trucks which have been carrying these food grains. So thereby there will be no diversion and no corruption within the food grains. So because of the use of GPS technology and regular tracking of these trucks which are carrying food grains. And apart from that, the SMS based monitoring is another important initiative that was introduced, and through this SMS based monitoring, the government will regularly send the notification to the registered beneficiaries about the availability of food grains, and the date and time of food grains will be distributed at the fair price shops. So regularly alerts will be sent to the eligible beneficiaries, and even use of web based citizens portal was also launched, so that citizens can actually register their grievances about the fair price shops in case of any corruption or anything takes place, or any grievances citizens have with respect to the fair price shops. So that can be registered through these fair price, through this web based citizens portal, right? So these are the initiatives that the government has recently taken to make sure that the public distribution system is foolproof in nature. And another very important topic is that the government is going to declare budget very soon. So therefore, what should be the priority of the government in the full-time budget that the finance minister Dr. Nirmala Sitharaman is going to announce? So therefore, experts have been stressing on the need to prioritize green projects. So it is very important for India's green growth and green transition, and therefore budget must focus on the green projects. And recently the finance minister budget speeches, the finance minister's budget speeches have been giving increasing emphasis on the green growth, right? So last few years, if you look into the finance minister's budget speeches, and they are very often emphasizing on the green growth. Now what does this green growth actually means? Now green growth actually means that growth which disincentivizes or discourages the use of fossil fuels. It focuses or encourages the adoption of electric vehicles. Renewable energy would be a focus area, and promotion of hydrogen would be a focus area. It would provide incentives for the biogas generation. So all these things comes under the green growth. So in fact, this was followed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's announcement in the COP26 Glasgow summit that India would meet 500 gigawatt of energy from the non-fossil fuel sources by 2030, and in fact India will also become net zero by 2070. So these are two ambitious goals that Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced in his COP26 Glasgow summit. However, apart from that, in order to further give a lot of fillip to the green growth, we also launched the green bonds scheme. So this green bond schemes will actually incentivizes and encourages the individual and community or civil society actions with respect to the green development or green growth. So it incentivizes, encourages the afforestation programs or any other programs. So that includes waste management also and afforestation programs also. So all these programs would be covered under the green bond scheme, and it actually incentivizes them and encourage them to make a faster and rapid transition into the green growth. And in fact, the budget expected to make announcements to ensure that India will become a self-reliant India or Atmanirbhar Bharat over a period of time. So that would become a major component of the union budget, in line with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's goal of becoming Atmanirbhar Bharat and also Vikasit Bharat by the year 2047. Remember, we also have the goal of becoming developed country by the year 2047. And for this to achieve, it is very important that we need to focus on the green growth and a faster green transition away from the existing fossil fuels, because these fossil fuels releases carbon into the environment. So in order to achieve that green growth, we aspiring for the production of domestic solar panels with a full value addition within India is very, very important. We should not import solar panels. Rather, we need to encourage and promote the domestic solar panel manufacturing industry, and that would give of a lot of fillip, and that would also help us achieve the goal of becoming self-reliant in the solar panel sector over a period of next 5 years. And in fact, it would also give a boost to export of these solar panels to other parts of the world, because there's a lot of demand for these solar panels, and at the same time it would make India a global leader in the solar panel manufacturing. The use of solar panels can be made mandatory for the rooftop solar panel program, right? So Pradhan Mantri Suryodaya Yojana program was also recently launched. So according to this program, so 1 crore households is going to have these solar panels at their rooftop, so that the energy would be much more cheaper, and at the same time the energy demand would be reduced, and most of the energy would be produced from the sunlight alone. So therefore we can substantially or gradually move away from the coal as a fossil fuel, because most of the energy in India is produced from the thermal power plants, and thermal power plants have been using coal, right? So apart from that, these solar panels or government procured solar panels which are domestically manufactured or which are having the 100% domestic value addition, can be used for pumping groundwater for irrigation, and government can use those solar panels for railways. For example, Guwahati was the first, Guwahati, we can say that it is the first fully solar railway station in India. So by the railways, government buildings, defense establishments, and campuses of the government finance institutions, and finally that would enhance the energy efficiency, and it would also give a fillip to the green growth, or it would give a fillip to the green transition. And in fact, the budget could also make important announcements regarding the goal of making India self-reliant, and also making India's growth greener in nature, and adoption of electric vehicles through some incentives as part of the production linked incentive scheme, as well as the faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles phase 2 scheme. So it is expected that the government will make certain announcements regarding the production linked incentive scheme, particularly the electric vehicles, and also the FAME 2 program. So the government also launched the National Hydrogen Mission. So we will understand the objectives of the National Hydrogen Mission briefly. Right. So when we talk about the objectives of the National Green Hydrogen Mission, so it is expected that by 2030 at least 5 million metric tons of green hydrogen per annum should be produced through the green hydrogen mission. So such infrastructure, such technology capabilities have to be developed by by 2030, and 60 to 100 gigawatt of electrolyzer capacity would be developed by 2030, and 125 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity for the green hydrogen generation and associated transmission networks. So in fact, when we talk about the total outlay that was approved by the Union government for this National Green Hydrogen Mission was 1 lakh crore rupees of import savings, and 50 million metric tons of CO2 annual emissions would be averted, because once we started producing such a huge scale green hydrogen, of course we would reduce our dependence on fossil fuels and import of fossil fuels also, because 85% of our fossil fuels are imported from other countries. And it would also expected to create 6 lakh employment opportunities and 8 lakh crore investments over a period of time. So you can also go through the green commitments or mission Panchamrit that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced in his Glasgow summit of COP26. Right. So that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. If you like our work, please like the video and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.